A new FBI report released just hours ago showing that the South is seeing the highest number of reported human trafficking cases compared to other parts of the country.
Sir, I heard you want the death penalty for drug dealers. Why?
Well, I'd like to end the drug epidemic, if that's okay. Remember this, and I said it. Every drug dealer, on average, kills 500 people. That's not mentioning all of the families that are destroyed forever.
12 a.m. Minneapolis. The city lay in a deep, unnatural silence. The streets were empty, the lights were off, and a heavy, suffocating blanket of snow pressed against the curbs. Most of the city was asleep, but in the shadows of an unassuming 4-story building, the world was about to change. This building was not a warehouse or a drug den. It was registered as a non-profit organization, a federally funded charity claiming to serve vulnerable immigrant families and women in crisis. But behind those clean glass doors and mission statements of hope and compassion, something enormous was being concealed. Stay with me, because what 71 highly trained agents from the FBI and ICE found during this federal government takedown will shatter everything you think you know about how charity works in America. They didn't just find records of fraud, they found a $500 million cash hoard and over 1,000 pounds of narcotics hidden inside the very walls of the executive offices. This was not a failed business. This was a hidden empire built quietly and protected carefully under the cover of government funding. If you believe this level of institutional betrayal goes deeper than the headlines, comment truth right now and subscribe to the channel. Your engagement ensures these stories aren't buried by the people they expose. The air was freezing as the tactical teams took their positions. There were no sirens, no flashing lights, and no warnings. The target was Fisel Omar Shik, a 49-year-old Somali national and the CEO of the organization. Shik was a man of high standing, a respected figure who appeared at charity galas, posed for photographs with local officials, and spoke with calculated eloquence about helping the vulnerable. On paper, his mission was flawless: housing assistance, job training, and emergency aid for immigrant families. His organization had received more than $600 million in public funding and private donations over the past 6 years. But federal investigators weren't looking at the brochures, they were looking at the shadow architecture. 4:17 a.m. breach. Tactical units flooded the building, securing it floor by floor. As agents began seizing computers and opening filing cabinets, they expected to find white-collar evidence, forged invoices, and ghost payrolls. But within minutes, the investigation shifted from the digital world to the physical structure of the building itself. Supervisory agents noticed something off about the executive suite. The paint was too fresh. The walls were thicker than the structural designs allowed. When they deployed thermal imaging equipment, they saw the impossible, abnormal cold zones, pockets of air where there should have been solid support beams. The command was given: take down the walls. What lay behind the reinforced drywall was a scene that made even veteran investigators stand in stunned silence. It wasn't just cash, it was infrastructure. Bricks of U.S. currency were tightly bundled, wrapped in heavy plastic, and sealed with industrial tape. The smell hit the agents' first: old paper, moisture, and mold. This money had been sitting there for years. Some of the serial numbers dated back over a decade. The cash didn't spill out. It was stacked with the precision of a bank vault. It was hidden inside load-bearing walls behind the executive desk. Dropped ceiling panels weighted down by millions in bills. Hollow voids beneath raised flooring. Fake electrical panels that led to secret cavities. By sunrise, the inventory was staggering. $500 million in physical cash was recovered from a single building. To understand the scale, federal records show fewer than 5 seizures over $100 million in cash nationwide in the past 20 years. This wasn't drug money in a duffel bag. It was a central bank for an underground network, hidden in plain sight inside a nonprofit office. Why hide it like this? Because cash in a wall cannot be tracked by an audit. It leaves no paper trail. It buys time. If the system discovered the fraud, the directors could slowly bleed the walls dry and vanish before a single bank account was frozen. Comment expose if you believe every wall in these nonprofits needs to be scanned. But as the sun rose over Minneapolis, the investigation took a darker turn. The money was the profit, but the agents had now found the engine. In a sealed storage area disguised as emergency relief supplies, investigators uncovered over 700 pounds of methamphetamine and significant quantities of cocaine and heroin. But it was the discovery of 30,000 blue fentanyl pills that truly terrified the team. These pills were not in bottles or bags. They were being smuggled inside Easter eggs, a chilling indicator of the network's intent to distribute these lethal substances into the heart of the community without drawing suspicion. This quantity was enough to kill millions. It represented a systematic pipeline, and the maps recovered from the CEO's private desk confirmed it. These weren't random sales. They were coordinated transit routes tracking movement across a 5-state region including Wisconsin, Illinois, Iowa, and Michigan. The charity wasn't just laundering money, it was a primary logistics hub for a multi-state narcotics network. The organization used its housing assistance vans to move product, fast-tracking inspections, and using city resources to clear the way. This wasn't a criminal group evading the law, it was a criminal group occupying the law. While forensic teams were counting money and weighing meth, a separate task force began reviewing internal expense logs. They found a recurring category labeled private services. The amounts were precise, consistent, and unsettling. Within 48 hours, federal agents identified and rescued 27 women tied directly to these payments. These weren't clients of the charity. They were victims. The organization had leased 11 apartments across Minneapolis, registered under charitable subsidiaries. On paper, they were transitional housing. In reality, they were controlled prisons. Inside, agents found surveillance cameras facing inward to monitor every movement, windows modified so they could not be opened, doors that locked automatically from the outside. These women were treated as revenue assets. Each woman was assigned a numerical code, not a name. They were forced into commercial sex activities to pay back their housing and immigration paperwork fees, generating over $41 million in revenue that was laundered back into the charity's accounts. If they failed to meet weekly quotas of $12,000, they were threatened with exposure to immigration authorities. This was a factory of human suffering, hidden behind a badge of women's support programs. The cruelty was quiet, systematic, and hidden behind perfect paperwork. Comment protect if you stand with the agents who brought these women home. How did a system this massive survive for 7 years without a single alarm? The answer is found in the financial funnel. Shik's organization had received a total of $780 million in combined federal and state funding. Forensic accountants discovered that less than 20% of that money ever touched a verifiable community program. The rest moved through a labyrinth of 18 shell companies that all shared the same mailing address, a single post office box opened under a false name. They used ghost vendors to drain the accounts. One invoice claimed $22 million for building renovations that never happened. Another listed $17 million for counseling services from staff members who didn't exist. There were over 14,000 cash withdrawals designed to stay just under the $10,000 reporting limit. Shik's organization had passed 12 separate audits in 6 years. Why? Because they spoke the language of the system. They filed the reports, they attended the meetings, and they relied on the fact that no one wanted to question a charity. The system didn't fail to catch them. The system rewarded their efficiency by providing even more grants. By late afternoon, Fisel Omar Shik was in federal custody, facing over 120 years in prison. Agents believed the case was closed. But as they pulled data from an encrypted server in the basement, a chilling alert appeared on the screen. Timestamped just minutes after the raid began, a single entry read, Phase 2 routes active. Within a 92-minute window following the initial raid, while the CEO was being handcuffed, an additional $41.7 million was moved out of the network's secondary accounts. The transfers were rapid, fragmented, and routed through accounts in the Caribbean and Eastern Europe. This proved a terrifying reality. The network was not a person. It was an architecture. It was designed to survive exposure. There were mid-level coordinators, individuals embedded in regulatory boards, licensing offices, and transport firms who knew exactly what to do when the central hub was hit. 2 private contractors vanished before agents could reach them. A mid-level city administrator wiped his devices and deactivated his access credentials remotely before disappearing. The shadow architecture had backup corridors and redundant systems that agents are still trying to map. The raid on the Minneapolis charity is officially classified as a systemic breach. What was dismantled was significant. $500 million seized, 27 lives saved, and 1,000 pounds of poison taken off the streets. But what remains is the warning. For years, power provided the protection. Corruption didn't hide in a back alley. It hid behind clean offices, government grants, and public trust. Fisel Omar Shik and his network didn't break the law. They occupied it, using the very systems designed to protect the vulnerable to exploit them instead. The walls of that charity office have fallen, and the money has been counted. But the Phase 2 operators are still out there, waiting for the pressure to ease, waiting for the attention to fade so they can rebuild under a different name. Stay alert. Stay skeptical. If you want to see the full list of shadow coordinators uncovered in the next part of this investigation, hit the like button and subscribe now. This is a war for the soul of our communities, and the truth is our only weapon. Comment truth if you believe this goes beyond one city and one charity.